Homeless woman feeds paralyzed boy, and video goes viral on social media. But when this happens, Barbara knelt beside the wheelchair and brought another spoonful of food to the boy's mouth. Her hands trembled, not from the cold on that December afternoon in Chicago, but from the hunger that had been gnawing at her stomach for days. "Aunt Barbara, aren't you going to eat?" asked Connor, the 8-year-old boy she was feeding with her last portion of food. The woman smiled, a smile that hid years of suffering and a story no one knew. "I already ate, my angel. Now it's your turn," she lied, watching the boy chew slowly. In the background, unnoticed, a cell phone recorded the entire scene. Millennium Park in downtown Chicago was as busy as ever. Street vendors shouted their offers, hurried executives cut paths between the benches, and pigeons fought over crumbs on the ground. Barbara knew every corner of that place. For 3 years, she had slept under the awning of the Chicago Theater, sharing the space with other invisible souls of the city. "Will you tell me another story?" Connor asked, his eyes shining with anticipation. Barbara adjusted the blanket over the boy's paralyzed legs and began narrating one of her made-up tales about a brave boy who could fly. As she spoke, her mind wandered to another time when she wore a white coat and saved lives. Nancy, the nanny, watched from a distance, pretending to fiddle with her phone. For 6 months, she had allowed these secret meetings. At first, she had been suspicious when the homeless woman approached, but she soon noticed how Connor, usually so quiet and withdrawn, transformed in her presence. It was as if she held a magical key to unlocking the boy's closed-off world. "Miss Nancy, can we go around one more time?" Connor called, turning his head to look for the nanny. Nancy nodded, relieved to see him so animated. At home, he barely left his room, refused physical therapy, and answered his parents' questions with single words. Barbara pushed the wheelchair slowly along the sidewalk. She knew every bump, every uneven spot that might cause the boy discomfort. Her calloused hands gripped the handles firmly, and she hummed softly, a melody that seemed to soothe Connor. "Auntie, why do you live on the street?" The question came suddenly, as children's questions often do. Barbara paused for a moment, her chest tight. "How do you explain to a child that life sometimes takes everything away?" "Sometimes we lose our way home," she answered simply. "But the important thing is never to lose the way to our heart." Connor fell silent, processing her words. His little fingers tapped on the armrest of the wheelchair, a habit he'd developed when deep in thought. Barbara knew every gesture, every expression of his. Over the past few months, she had learned to read him like an open book. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now back to the story. The video, recorded by a curious passerby, captured every detail. Barbara sharing her meal, carefully wiping the boy's face, adjusting his clothes. But what stood out most was the tenderness in every gesture, the maternal care that transcended all social barriers. Within hours, the images would begin a digital journey that would change everything. "We need to go back," Nancy said, approaching. It was almost 5, and Connor's parents would be home by 6. Barbara nodded, starting to turn the wheelchair around. "Will you come tomorrow?" Connor held Barbara's dirty hand. The contrast between the two was striking, one small and soft, the other weathered and marked by time. "God willing, my angel." Nancy took the wheelchair and Barbara slowly stepped back. The boy waved until she disappeared into the crowd. None of them imagined that would be their last afternoon together for a long time. Michael Reynolds was in his office, on the top floor of a mirrored building on Michigan Avenue, when his phone vibrated for the 10th time in 5 minutes. He ignored the first calls, focused on a video conference with investors from Tokyo. But when his secretary entered without knocking, her face pale, he knew something was wrong. "Mr. Reynolds, you need to see this," she said, handing him the tablet where a video played on loop. Michael saw his son being fed by a homeless woman in the middle of the plaza. His blood boiled as he read the comments. How awful, using a disabled child to beg for money. Where are this boy's parents? Social services needs to step in. "Cancel everything," he ordered, already grabbing his jacket. "And call my lawyer." Now, Jennifer Reynolds was in a board meeting when she got the call from her husband. As the vice president of a multinational pharmaceutical company, she was used to handling crises. But nothing had prepared her to see her vulnerable child exposed on social media, being used in what looked like an emotional scam. "How did this happen?" she shouted into the phone as she rushed to the elevator. "Where was Nancy?" The nanny trembled when the couple arrived home. She tried to explain that she knew the woman, that she had never asked for money, that Connor liked her. But her words were lost in the fury of her employers. "You let a stranger get close to my son?" Michael slammed the table. "A homeless woman? Do you know how many diseases she could carry? She's clean, sir, and Connor—" Nancy tried to argue. "You're fired," Jennifer cut in. "Pack your things. Now." But under the threat of legal action and the pressure of the moment, Nancy denied it. She said the homeless woman had approached without her permission, that she had tried to stop her, but the woman insisted. Every word stabbed her conscience, but the fear of losing references for future jobs spoke louder. Connor, from the top of the stairs where he had managed to crawl unnoticed, heard everything. Silent tears rolled down his face as he watched Nancy leave with her suitcase. The nanny looked up one last time and their eyes met. The boy's silent forgiveness hurt more than any accusation. Barbara was sleeping in her usual spot when security arrived. It was 2 in the morning, and the light rain soaked her torn blankets. She woke up startled by flashlights in her face and aggressive voices. "That's her," one confirmed, showing the photo on his phone. "Orders from Mr. Reynolds. You have to leave now." "But I didn't do anything." Barbara tried to stand, her aching joints protesting. "Doesn't matter, the building owner doesn't want you here. Move along." She gathered her few belongings, 2 blankets, an old backpack, some clothes. In her hurry, she dropped a plastic bag she kept with care. She tried to go back for it, but one of the guards shoved her. "Keep walking, unless you want us to call the cops." Barbara walked away in the rain, heartbroken, not by the humiliation, she was used to that, but by the certainty that she would never see Connor again, her boy, her angel, the reason she got up every day and kept living. The video's virality reached unimaginable levels. Within 48 hours, it had millions of views. Influencers weighed in, psychologists analyzed it, social workers demanded action. The sensationalist headline, "Homeless Woman Exploits Disabled Child," in public plaza dominated social media. Jason Miller, an investigative journalist for the site Chicago Now, felt something was off about those images. 20 years in the business had given him a nose for poorly told stories. The video showed genuine care, not exploitation. "I'm looking into this," he announced at the editorial meeting. "There's something strange about this story." He started with the basics, identifying the boy. It wasn't hard. Connor Reynolds, 8 years old, the only child of one of the city's most powerful couples. Partial paralysis since age 3, cause unknown. He attended an elite private school and received treatment at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. But when he tried to speak to his parents, he hit a wall. Lawyers responded on their behalf. The new nanny, hired in a rush, knew nothing. The neighbors didn't want to get involved. Jason needed another angle. That's when he discovered something curious in the hospital records. Connor had physical therapy 3 times a week, always on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 2 in the afternoon. And in the admission logs, there was often a note. Companion inquired about patient's progress, informed that details are restricted to family. Who could this companion be? Jason showed the records to Amber, a receptionist who'd worked at the hospital for years. "Oh, it's a woman who always shows up." Amber lowered her voice. "She stands in the hallway just watching when the boy passes by. Never goes in, never talks to anyone in the family. Just watches." "Can you describe her?" "Gray hair, always tied back, simple but clean clothes. There's something, I don't know, familiar about her, like she knows the place." Jason felt his journalistic instincts kick in. He asked to see the security footage, but was told he'd need a court order, so he decided to stake out the hospital on Connor's therapy. Days. Meanwhile, at home, the boy was wasting away. He refused food, wouldn't speak to anyone, resisted all treatments. Sleep meds were the only way to get him to rest. Jennifer canceled work trips to stay with her son. Michael hired the best, child psychologists. "Connor, sweetheart, talk to mommy." Jennifer smoothed the boy's hair. "What's happening?" Silence. Do you want something special? A new toy? We can go to Universal Studios when you're better. Connor turned his face to the wall. Jennifer left the room in tears. In the hallway, she ran into Michael. This is your fault, she accused. Your need to control everything. Now our son is like this. My fault? Michael raised his voice. I was protecting our son. You saw the video. That woman. That woman what? Jennifer confronted him. Was feeding our son. With kindness, that's all. And look what we did. The fights became constant. The marriage, already worn by routine and absences, began to crumble. Guilt, accusations, regret. The once quiet house turned into a Cold War zone. Barbara found shelter in an abandoned building on the south side. The place was dangerous, but she had no choice. The bag with her few treasures had been left behind, and that hurt more than the cold and hunger. They were her only reminders of when she had a life. During the day, she wandered the city, always avoiding downtown. The fear of being recognized and humiliated again was constant. At night, she dreamed of Connor. She saw his little smiling face, heard his voice calling Aunt Barbara. She woke up sobbing. But she couldn't just disappear. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 2 in the afternoon, she was in the hospital hallway. She hid among other patients, pretended to read old magazines, anything to catch a glimpse of Connor passing by. The boy looked more withdrawn, thinner, sadder each time. Once, their eyes met for a second. Connor tried to turn his wheelchair, tried to call out to her, but the new nanny, a stern woman in a starched uniform, scolded him. Barbara ran before anyone could recognize her. Her heart shattered. Jason finally saw her. A woman who didn't fit the hospital's luxurious setting, but moved through the halls with familiarity. He followed discreetly when she left. "Ma'am, please," he called when they were away from the hospital. "Can I talk to you?" Barbara tried to run, but her weak legs wouldn't cooperate. Jason caught up easily. "I don't want any trouble," she begged. "Please, don't hurt me." "Easy, I'm a journalist," Jason showed his badge. "I want to hear your side of the story, about the boy in the park." Emily shook her head, tears streaming down her bruised face. "I can't, they'll arrest me. I didn't do anything wrong, I swear. I just wanted to take care of him." "Why?" Jason pressed gently. "Why do you care so much about that boy?" Silence stretched between them. Emily wrestled internally, decades of buried secrets fighting to break free. Finally she whispered, "Because it's my fault. Everything is my fault." Jason sensed he was on the verge of uncovering something huge. He invited her for coffee, promising not to publish anything without her permission. Exhausted from carrying her burden alone, Emily agreed. In a simple diner between sips of black coffee and buttered toast, Emily's first decent meal in days, the story began to unfold. "I was a nurse," she started, her voice trembling. "I worked 20 years at City General Hospital. I loved my job, it was my life," Jason discreetly recorded, feeling the weight of the moment. 5 years ago there was a case." Emily paused, swallowing hard. "A premature baby, born at just 6 months. A very critical case. I was on duty in the NICU." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers. Now back to the story. The memories came in painful waves. The baby struggling to breathe, monitors beeping, the frantic rush to save that tiny life. Emily worked extra shifts, unpaid, just to care for him. She formed a bond that went beyond professionalism. The baby survived, she continued, but with complications, partial paralysis. The doctors said it was a mistake in the resuscitation procedure. Someone had to take the blame. "And they blamed you?" Jason already guessed the answer. "It wasn't me," Emily met his gaze. "It was Dr. Rachel. Young, just out of school, a single mother of 2. She froze at the critical moment, gave the wrong dose. I tried to correct it, but..." "Why did you take the blame?" I looked at her in that moment, saw the desperation, the fear. If she lost her job, how would she support her daughters? I had no one. It was easier. Jason was stunned. Years of journalism hadn't prepared him for such selflessness. "I lost everything," Emily went on. Suspended license, criminal charges, fines. I sold everything I had to pay lawyers. In the end, I wasn't jailed, but I became an outcast. No one hires a nurse with a negligence record. And the baby was Connor. Emily nodded, tears flowing freely now. I watched from afar, saw in the papers when he was born, the Reynolds son, read about his paralysis, the treatments. The guilt ate at me. I had to do something, anything. That's why you got close to him. When I first saw him in the park 6 months ago, Emily smiled through her tears. It was like fate gave me a second chance. Not to fix the mistake, but to care for him the way I always wanted. Jason turned off the recorder. He needed to verify the story, confirm every detail. If true, it was both a journalistic and human bombshell. I need proof, he said honestly. Documents, witnesses. Dr. Richard Thompson, Emily answered immediately. He was my supervisor. He knows the truth. He tried to defend me, but I confessed. He must still have the original records. In the days that followed, Jason dove into the investigation. He tracked down Dr. Thompson, now retired, living in a modest home in Evanston. The doctor, initially reluctant, eventually confirmed everything. It was the greatest injustice I've seen in 40 years of medicine, Richard admitted. Emily was the best nurse I ever had, saved hundreds of lives, and they destroyed her for a mistake that wasn't even hers. Do you have proof? Richard went to an old cabinet and pulled out a dusty folder. I kept everything. I knew the truth would come out one day. Original reports, testimonies, videos from the NICU camera that mysteriously disappeared from the case. Jason flipped through the documents with trembling hands. There it all was, proof that Barbara had sacrificed her life to protect a colleague. And more. Records of every extra shift she'd worked to care for baby Connor. Detailed notes on every improvement, every small victory. Why did you never present this? Jason asked. Barbara forbade me. Said she wouldn't go back on her word. That Dr. Rachel needed the job more than she did. Stubbornness or greatness, I could never tell. Meanwhile, Connor's condition worsened. Doctors grew concerned about signs of deep depression in such a young child. Medications had no effect. Therapies were ignored. He's giving up on life, said Dr. Roberts, the family pediatrician, in a harsh conversation with the parents. We need to understand the trigger. Jennifer, desperate, tried a different approach. She sat on the floor of her son's room, abandoning her executive demeanor. Con, my love, she began softly. Mommy was wrong, Daddy was wrong. We want to make it right, but you need to help us. For the first time in weeks, Connor looked at her. Where's Aunt Barbara? His voice was hoarse, weak. We sent her away, Jennifer admitted, but we can look for... She's hungry. Connor started crying. She gave her food to me. She always gives her food away, and now she's hungry and cold and alone. Jennifer felt her heart break. She hugged her son, crying with him. We'll find her, she promised. We'll bring her back. The search began immediately. Michael, still resistant but seeing his son's state, mobilized his contacts. Private detectives, social workers, even the police were called, now to help, not to arrest. Then Jason published the first article. The truth behind the viral video, the untold story of sacrifice and love. The piece detailed the investigation, the evidence, Barbara's true identity. Within minutes, it went even more viral than the original video. Jennifer read it with tears streaming down her face. Michael, in his office, felt the world spin. They had hunted and humiliated the woman who saved their son's life, the woman who sacrificed everything and still cared for him, even while living on the streets. We need to find her now, Michael called Jennifer, whatever it takes. Public. Outcry was immediate. Groups organized to search for Barbara. Healthcare workers who had worked with her gave emotional testimonies. Dr. Rachel, the physician Barbara had protected, came forward publicly, begging forgiveness and confirming the story. But Barbara seemed to have vanished. She wasn't at. The hospital hadn't returned to the park. No one saw her in her usual spots. Fear had driven her deeper into the city's underbelly. Rosalie, a florist with a stand near Millennium Park, gave the crucial lead. "She came by last week," she told the detectives. "She looked terrible, really bad. Said she was going to rest, that she was too tired. Mentioned an abandoned building near the overpass." The search party that formed included Connor's parents, doctors, social workers, and Jason. They found the place at dusk, a concrete skeleton where a future subway station was never finished. Barbara was in a corner, curled up between cardboard sheets, burning with fever, delirious. She hadn't eaten in days, giving the few coins she had to other unhoused people. "Barbara," Jennifer was the first to reach her. "My God, forgive me. Forgive me." Barbara opened glazed eyes, recognizing no one. Need to see Con. He needs to eat," she murmured. The ambulance arrived within minutes. At the hospital, the same one where Connor was being treated, Barbara went straight to the emergency room. Severe malnutrition, pneumonia, dehydration. Years of deprivation had taken their toll. "She needs to be admitted," the doctor informed. "Critical but stable condition. Whatever she needs," Michael ordered. "The best doctors, the best treatment. I'll cover everything." But Barbara, as she partially regained consciousness, panicked. Hospitals brought back terrible memories. She tried to pull out the IVs to escape. They had to sedate her. That was when the psychologist suggested something radical. "She has severe hospital trauma. But there's one thing that might calm her, or rather someone." Connor was brought to Barbara's room the next day. The change in him had been visible ever since he learned she'd been found. He'd started eating again, speaking, even attempting to stand on his own. When he entered the room and saw Barbara hooked up to machines, the boy didn't hesitate. "Aunt Barbara," he called softly. "Wake up. It's me, your angel." Barbara opened her eyes. Seeing Connor, she tried to smile. "My boy, you okay? Have you been eating properly?" "Now it's you who needs to eat." Connor held her hand. "I brought pudding. You like pudding, right?" That small hand holding hers broke through all of Barbara's barriers. She cried as she hadn't in years, a sob that washed away decades of guilt and pain. "Forgive me," she whispered, "for everything. For what happened when you were a baby." Connor, with wisdom beyond his years, replied, "You saved me twice, Auntie. When I was born and now. There's nothing to forgive." Barbara's recovery was slow but steady. Jennifer practically moved into the hospital, splitting her time between caring for her and Connor. Michael, transformed by the experience, used his influence to clear Barbara's name, reinstate her professional license, and pursue legal action against everyone involved in the injustice. Nancy, the former nanny, showed up asking for forgiveness. She brought the bag Barbara had dropped that night. Inside were photos of Connor at different ages, taken from afar, newspaper clippings about him, and an old photo, a young Barbara in a lab coat, holding a premature baby, newborn Connor. "She always loved that boy," Nancy wept, "and I was a coward. Forgive me." The final reunion happened a month later. Barbara, physically recovered but still emotionally fragile, resisted the Reynolds family's invitations to live with them. "I'm nobody's charity case," she said proudly. "I've caused enough trouble." It was Connor who found the solution. During a physical therapy session, he made an extraordinary effort. Leaning on the parallel bars, he took 3 steps, his first in years. "I did it, Aunt Barbara," he shouted, "but I'll only really walk if you stay with me. I need you to help me." How could she resist? Barbara initially agreed to be Connor's physical therapy assistant. Soon she was reorganizing the boy's entire care routine, applying techniques she'd learned through years of experience. The Reynolds home, once silent and tense, came alive. Barbara brought warmth to those cold walls. Jennifer reduced her workload to spend more time with the family. Michael learned to be a real father, not just a provider, but the most emotional moment was yet to come. On Connor's 9th birthday, Barbara prepared a surprise. For months, she'd worked with him in secret, strengthening his muscles, building his confidence. When the guests sang "Happy Birthday," Connor stood up from his chair, alone, and walked, slowly with effort, but walked, to Barbara. "This is my gift to you," he said, "for never giving up on me." Not a single dry eye remained at the party. The video of that moment, posted by Jennifer with the caption, "Love heals, love transforms. Thank you, Barbara," went viral worldwide. But this time, it was a wave of goodness, of hope. The park where it all began was transformed. Through Barbara's initiative and with funding from the Reynolds family, it became a meeting place for families with special needs children. Barbara coordinated support groups, using her experience to help others. "Everyone needs an angel," she would say during the meetings. "Sometimes we are the angel, sometimes we receive the angel. The important thing is to recognize the moment." Dr. Rachel, redeemed by the truth, joined the project. Nancy returned as a volunteer. Even healthcare professionals who had known Barbara in the past came to help. Jason won awards for his investigative journalism, but the greatest reward, according to him, was witnessing that story of redemption. He continued following the family, documenting Connor's progress. A year later, Connor wasn't just walking with the help of special braces, he was running. His progress amazed doctors, but Barbara wasn't surprised. "Love and dedication work miracles," she simply said. "I always knew he could. He just needed someone to believe in him." On a sunny afternoon, in the same park where it all began, Barbara watched Connor play with other children. Jennifer sat beside her. "Thank you," she said simply, "for saving my son, twice." "He saved me too," Barbara replied. "He gave me a reason to keep going when I had nothing left." Michael approached, "With coffee for both of them. Family takes care of family," he said, sitting on the other side of Barbara. And that's what they had become, family. Not by blood, but by choice. United by something stronger than biological ties. United by love that overcomes all barriers. The golden afternoon light fell over Chicago. In the park, children played, pigeons pecked, life went on. But for these people, everything had changed. The video that had started as a symbol of exploitation became proof that true love knows no social status, that silent sacrifice exists, and that second chances are possible. Barbara, who had once slept under awnings and gone hungry, now had a home. But more importantly, she had a renewed purpose. Every child she helped, every family she guided, was a way to multiply the love she had received. Connor, growing strong and determined, dreamed of becoming a doctor. "I'll take care of kids like me," he said, "and I'll have Aunt Barbara as my head nurse." Tears came easily when Barbara heard that. Tears of joy, gratitude, and complete redemption. The circle had closed in the most beautiful way possible. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing, the years passed, bringing new challenges and triumphs. By the age of 12, Connor was walking without braces most of the time. His progress inspired other children at the support center. Barbara, officially reinstated as a nurse, divided her time between caring for Connor and coordinating social programs. One morning, Jennifer found Barbara in the garden watching the sunrise. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, sitting beside her. "About how life takes turns," Barbara smiled. "I lost everything to gain so much more. I lost a career to gain, family. We're the ones who gained you." Jennifer held her hand. "We taught Connor to walk. You taught all of us how to live." It was true. Barbara's presence had transformed not just Connor, but the entire family dynamic. Michael had become more human, less obsessed with work. Jennifer had found balance between career and motherhood. And Connor flourished. The support center grew, serving hundreds of families. Barbara insisted that each child receive individualized attention, that every family be heard. Her experience on the streets had taught her that everyone has a story. Everyone deserves dignity. One afternoon, a young woman appeared at the center. She carried a child with cerebral palsy in her arms. She was dirty, exhausted, clearly homeless. "I was told you help here," she murmured, embarrassed. Barbara welcomed her without judgment. She offered a shower, food, clean clothes. While the woman recovered, she cared for the child with decades of expertise. "How did you end up on the streets?" she asked gently. The story was common. A husband left when the child was born with a disability, family rejected them, lost a job from missing work to care for the child. A downward spiral Barbara knew well. "Here, you'll find support," Barbara assured her. "You're not alone anymore." Connor, who helped at the center after school, approached the child. "Hey, little one," he said with a smile. "Want to see a trick?" He juggled 3 oranges, a skill he'd developed to improve coordination. The child laughed for the first time in weeks. Barbara watched proudly. Connor had inherited her gift for care, for seeing beyond appearances. It was the continuation of a cycle of love and compassion. The project grew. Businessmen moved by the story donated resources. Professionals volunteered their time. What had begun as personal redemption became a social movement. One stormy night, Barbara woke restless. Something troubled her. She went downstairs to the kitchen and found Connor awake too. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "I'm thinking about the woman at the center, the one who arrived today with the baby." Connor said, stirring a glass of milk. "Where are they in this rain?" Barbara smiled. Her boy had a heart in the right place. "We'll look for them first thing in the morning," she promised. "Try to rest now." But neither of them could fall back asleep. By 5 in the morning, they were on the street with Michael and Jennifer Reynolds, searching for the woman. They found her under an overpass, shielding her child from the rain with her own body. "Come with us," Jennifer said, reaching out. "There's room for you both." And there was. The Reynolds home, once empty of affection, now overflowed. They had turned the basement into temporary housing for families in transition. Barbara oversaw everything, ensuring dignity and privacy. "You turned our house into a shelter," Michael joked once. "I turned it into a home," Barbara corrected. "A shelter houses, a home welcomes." The difference was clear. Families arrived broken and left rebuilt. It wasn't empty charity. It was real empowerment. Barbara taught mothers how to care for children with special needs, connected them with jobs, arranged treatments. Connor, now a teenager, started a YouTube channel documenting stories of resilience. The first video, of course, was about Barbara. Millions watched in tears as they followed the nurse's journey, how she lost everything for love and gained even more love in return. "Auntie, you're famous," Connor teased. "Fame doesn't interest me," Barbara replied. "I just want others to see there's always hope." And there was. Every child taking their first steps at the center, every reunited family, every mother finding strength was living proof. One day, Barbara received an official letter. The state government wanted to honor her for her service to society. At first, she resisted. She'd never done anything for recognition. But Connor convinced her. "You need to accept," he argued. "Not for you, but to show people like you exist and make a difference." The ceremony was emotional. Barbara, wearing her old nurse's uniform, which Jennifer had made new, accepted the medal with tears in her eyes. But the most touching moment came when Connor walked confidently onto the stage to give his speech. "This woman saved me twice," he began, his voice breaking. "Once when I was born and couldn't breathe, again when I was alive but had forgotten how to smile. She lost everything for doing what was right, and still she kept doing right. From the streets hungry, she fed me. Rejected, she loved me. This award isn't enough to honor someone like her, but it's a start." The audience erupted in applause. Barbara hugged Connor as if he were still that fragile baby in the NICU. The circle had truly come full circle, but life kept bringing challenges. The center faced bureaucracy, lack of resources, and prejudice. There were days when Barbara felt tired, too old for so many battles. It was on one of those difficult afternoons that she received an unexpected visit. Dr. Rachel, the doctor she had protected years ago, arrived in tears. "Barbara, I need to tell you something," she said between sobs. "My eldest daughter wants to be a nurse. Do you know why? Because she heard your story. She wants to be like you." Barbara hugged her, understanding the weight of those words. "We all make mistakes," she said softly. "What matters is what we do afterward. You raised 2 wonderful daughters. That erases any mistake." It was this ability to forgive, to see the best in people, that made Barbara special. She transformed lives not through grand gestures, but through small daily kindnesses. Connor, about to start college, faced a tough decision. Medicine had been his long-time dream, but social activism also called to him. He sought Barbara's advice. "What does your heart tell you?" she simply asked. "That I want to help people the way you do," Connor replied. "But I don't know if I need to be a doctor for that." "I was a nurse and ended up being so much more." Barbara smiled. "Sometimes life takes us down unexpected paths. The important thing is to stay open." Connor chose medicine with a specialization in social medicine. He wanted to combine technical knowledge with the human compassion Barbara had taught him. His high school graduation was a special moment. Connor, the class speaker, dedicated his speech to 3 women: the mother who never gave up, the grandmother of his heart who had saved him — Barbara blushed when he called her that — and all the warrior mothers at the support center. "I learned that disability isn't in the body," he said at the microphone. "It's in the lack of love, opportunity, and hope. These women taught me to walk, but more importantly, they taught me to walk in the right direction." Barbara watched with pride. Her boy had become a man, a good, compassionate, and aware man. The paralysis that should have limited him had become the strength that drove him to help others. The line to hug him after the ceremony was long. Children from the center, many, also overcoming physical limitations, saw him as a hero, but Connor always redirected the praise to Barbara. "She's the real hero," he repeated. "I'm just following her example." That evening, as the family gathered for a celebratory dinner, Michael made an important announcement. "I've decided to start a foundation," he revealed, "in Barbara's name, to carry on the center's work beyond our lifetimes." Barbara protested, as she always did with honors, but Jennifer interrupted her. "You gave us a second chance as a family," she said emotionally. "Let us repay you by ensuring your work continues forever." How could she argue with so much love? Barbara accepted, on the condition that the foundation not bear her name but be called Wingless Angels, because that's how she saw every special child she helped. The preparations to structure the foundation brought new energy to the group. Lawyers worked pro bono, architects donated designs, and business owners offered support. Barbara's story inspired generosity, but she remained the same, waking up early, tending to each child with individual care, listening to every mother with endless patience. Fame hadn't changed her essence. One morning, she found an envelope under the door, no sender. Inside was a letter written in shaky handwriting. "Barbara, you don't know me, but I know your story. I'm one of the many nurses you inspired not to give up. When I thought about leaving the profession, tired and disillusioned, I read about you. If you could keep caring even after everything, so can I. Thank you for existing." It was these anonymous messages that touched Barbara the most. Knowing her story motivated other professionals to persist in human care meant more to her than any award. Connor, already in college, kept a demanding routine. He studied in the morning, helped at the center in the afternoon, and volunteered for night shifts. Barbara worried about the overload, but he'd laugh. "I learned from the best," he'd say. "You never held back when it came to taking care of me. Now it's my turn." And he meant it. He created a tutoring program for young people with disabilities interested in medicine, breaking barriers and proving that physical limitations didn't hinder professional excellence. One rainy afternoon, Barbara got a phone call that shook her. One of the mothers from the center, struggling with depression, had attempted suicide. She rushed to the hospital, her heart heavy. She found the woman sedated, her autistic son beside her, confused about what had happened. Barbara immediately took charge of both. She spent nights at the hospital, alternating between supporting the mother and comforting the boy. "Why did you do this?" she asked when the woman woke up. "I'm tired," came the whispered reply. "It's too hard. No one understands." Barbara held her hand firmly. "I do," she said with conviction. "I've been at rock bottom too. I know what it's like to feel like there's no way out. But there always is. Always." For the first time with someone outside the Reynolds family, she shared the darkest moments of her life on the streets. The nights she thought of giving up, the hunger that hurt less than the loneliness, the cold that chilled less than the indifference. "But you know what kept me going," she continued. The certainty that somewhere someone needed me. Your son needs you, and you're stronger than you think. The recovery was long. Barbara organized a support network, therapy, and mothers' groups. She realized caring for the caregiver was just as important as caring for the children. This episode inspired a new focus: mental health for guardians. She brought in volunteer psychologists, created safe spaces for venting, and arranged breaks with trained caregivers. It's no use helping the child if the family falls apart, she'd explain in meetings. We need a holistic approach. Jennifer, inspired, used her corporate influence to create support policies for employees with special needs, children across several companies. The center's model became a national benchmark. Awards and recognition piled up. But Barbara's greatest trophy remained each small daily victory, like when little Billy, a non-verbal 7-year-old autistic boy, said his first word, "Auntie." Or when Olivia, with Down syndrome, was accepted into a mainstream school after preparation at the center. One afternoon, Connor brought his girlfriend to meet the family. Emily was a medical school classmate, beautiful and smart. But what won Barbara over was something else. "I've volunteered at your center for 2 years," Emily revealed with a smile. "That's where I fell for Connor, watching him care for the kids." Barbara hugged her, approving instantly. Anyone who understood the importance of caregiving earned her automatic respect. Their relationship grew into an engagement. Emily became part of the extended family, bringing fresh energy. Together, she and Connor developed adapted medical protocols for the center. The wedding was held in the backyard, with all the center's families present. Barbara, the matron of honor, cried from start to finish. Seeing her boy build his own family was a blessing beyond dreams. "You taught me what real love is," Connor said in his speech. "Now I want to build that same love with Emily, the kind I saw in our family." Our family. The words warmed Barbara. From a homeless woman to the matriarch of a beautiful, growing family, life truly took surprising turns. But age came with its price. Now 70, Barbara felt the wear of decades of struggle. Her knees ached, her blood pressure fluctuated. She tried to hide it, but Connor, now a doctor, noticed. "Auntie, you need to slow down," he said at a family meeting. "Slow down," Barbara protested. "I have too much work." "That's exactly why. We structured the foundation," Jennifer interjected, "so the work could continue without overwhelming you. It took a lot of convincing, but Barbara agreed to reduce her workload. She shifted to supervising rather than doing everything herself. She discovered joy in training a new generation of caregivers. As a mentor, she shone even brighter. She passed on not just techniques, but a philosophy of care. Young professionals sought her out, eager to learn from someone who had turned personal tragedy into a life mission. One morning, Barbara woke up to news that moved her deeply. The hospital where it all began, where she had been wronged decades ago, wanted to create a special care wing in her name. "This is the final recognition," said Richard, her former boss, when extending the invitation. "Late justice, but necessary." The inauguration was a crowded event. Healthcare professionals from across the country came to meet the nurse who had become an urban legend of compassion. Barbara, humble as ever, shared the credit. "Alone, I would be nothing," she said at the microphone. "It was a family's love that saved me. It was a child's need that gave me purpose. May this wing represent that, a place where technical care meets human love." Connor, now head of pediatrics at the same hospital, took pride in working where Barbara had once been wronged and was now honored. The circle had closed in a poetic way, but it was an unexpected encounter that brought the most emotional moment of her journey. An elderly woman appeared at the center looking for Barbara. She carried a folder yellowed with time. "You don't remember me," the woman began nervously. "But 40 years ago, when you were a newly graduated nurse, you cared for my premature baby. He survived because of you." Barbara tried to recall. There had been so many babies over the years. "I've kept this all these years," the woman opened the folder. "I wanted to thank you in person." Inside were photos of a healthy adult man surrounded by children, a pediatrician inspired by the nurse who had saved his life as a baby. "He always knew your story," the woman wept. "When he saw the news about you, he asked me to find you. He wanted you to know. You didn't just save him, but generations." Barbara embraced the woman, both in tears. How many lives had she touched without knowing? How many seeds of care had she planted that were now blooming around the world? These encounters multiplied. Professionals inspired by her story, families she had helped decades earlier, children who had grown into compassionate adults. Barbara's legacy spread like ripples in a lake. Connor and Emily announced the pregnancy on a sunny afternoon. Barbara would be a grandmother, not by blood, but by heart, which was an even stronger bond. "We want you to be her godmother." Emily held her hands. "There's no one better to bless our daughter." "Daughter," Barbara's voice trembled. "Emily Barbara," Connor revealed the name, "in honor of the two most important women in my life." How could she not cry? Barbara, who once thought she would die alone on the streets, now had family, legacy, and a future. Life, in its mysterious wisdom, had returned everything she had given, multiplied. The months of pregnancy were filled with eager anticipation. Barbara prepared the baby's layette with a grandmother's tenderness, while Jennifer and Michael competed over who would spoil their granddaughter more. The birth went smoothly, but Barbara relived memories as she entered the maternity ward, the same walls where she had saved baby Connor, where she had lost everything, and where she was now receiving it all back. When she held little Emily Barbara, for the first time the circle closed for good. A new life carrying her name would continue the chain of love and care. "She has your eyes," Connor observed. "Impossible," Barbara laughed through tears. "But she does have your heart. I can feel it." The baby, as if understanding, gripped Barbara's finger tightly, a silent promise that love would keep flowing through the generations. The support center, now the Wingless Angels Foundation, helped thousands of families. It had become a model replicated in other cities. Barbara, even officially retired, showed up every day. "I can't stay away," she admitted. "This is my life." She created a special program for elderly grandparents caring for grandchildren with disabilities. She understood the unique exhaustion of that situation. Support groups, respite care, specialized guidance. One afternoon, during a discussion circle with caregiving grandparents, Barbara shared a profound reflection. "Growing older while caring for others is a double challenge," she said. "The body tires, but love doesn't fade. We need a network, mutual support. No one grows old alone when they care with love." Her words resonated. Many there felt invisible, forgotten amid the demands of caregiving. Barbara saw them, valued them. It was transformative power. Little Emily Barbara grew up surrounded by love and diversity. At the center, she played naturally with children of all abilities. To her, wheelchairs, hearing aids, and atypical behaviors were just part of life's rich tapestry. "She'll grow up without prejudices," Barbara observed proudly. "She'll see ability where others see limitation." And she did. By age 3, the little girl was already helping during therapy sessions, handing out toys, making children laugh. She'd inherited the gift of care that flowed through their family. It was on one of those afternoons at the center that Barbara felt her first severe dizziness. She brushed it off, but Connor noticed. Tests revealed the inevitable. Her body was paying the price for decades of sacrifice and effort. "You need care now," Connor said, holding her hands. "Let us take care of you." "I still have so much to do," Barbara protested weakly. "And you will," Jennifer interjected. "But at your own pace. You've already taught us everything. Now it's our turn to put those lessons into practice." The transition was hard. Barbara, accustomed to caring for others, resisted being cared for. But the family organized themselves with the same dedication she'd always shown, rotating care, home, adaptations, constant yet respectful presence. Even with physical limitations, Barbara remained the heart of the center. From her special armchair, she guided, advised, and embraced. Her mere presence brought peace to families in crisis. One special afternoon, the center received a distinguished visitor. The Secretary of Health had come to see the model that had become a national benchmark. Barbara, sharp and articulate at 75, welcomed the delegation. "How do you explain the success of this model?" the Secretary asked. Barbara smiled. "The Same smile that had brightened faces for decades. "There's no secret," she replied simply. "We see people, not disabilities. We offer love, not pity. We build family, not an institution." The secretary left, committed to replicating the model nationwide. Barbara would become known as the woman who revolutionized disability care in the country, but to her she was still just Aunt Barbara, caring for her angels. Her afternoons were filled with visits. Professionals she'd trained, families she'd helped, now grown children coming to thank her. Each story confirmed it had all been worth it. Like the afternoon, a young man in a wheelchair arrived with his wife and baby daughter. "You might not remember me," he began emotionally, "but 15 years ago I was an angry teenager who refused to accept my disability. You told me something that changed my life." Barbara tried to recall. "The chair carries your body, not your dreams," he recited. "I became a Paralympic athlete because of those words. I met my wife through sports. I have a full life now. Thank you." How many seeds like that had Barbara planted? Impossible to count. But each one that sprouted and returned to thank her renewed. Her certainty that she'd made the right choices. Her physical decline accelerated that December. Barbara, always strong, grew frail, but her spirit remained unbroken. From her adapted bed in the living room, she refused to be isolated in a bedroom. She stayed part of family life. "Grandma B," little Emily Barbara climbed carefully onto the bed. "Tell me a story." And Barbara did. Stories of overcoming, of love, of hope. The great-granddaughter listened with the same attention Connor had shown decades earlier. The cycle continued. On a clear spring morning, Barbara woke up especially lucid. She asked to see the garden, where the roses she had planted with young Connor now bloomed in full splendor. "Everything is so beautiful," she murmured. The family gathered naturally. Michael and Jennifer, gray-haired but still together. Connor and Emily, with little Barbara and the new baby on the way. Nancy, who had returned as part of the family. Staff from the center who had become extended family. "I want to say something." Barbara gathered her strength. "I spent years thinking I had lost everything. But I was wrong. I was being prepared to gain all this." She looked at each beloved face. "You gave me more than salvation. You gave me purpose. Every child we helped, every family we welcomed, is an extension of the love that began in a park." Connor held her hand, tears streaming down. "You taught us that true love turns tragedy into miracle," he said, his voice choked. "It wasn't me," Barbara smiled. "It was love. I just let it flow through me." The golden sunset illuminated the garden. Barbara closed her eyes at peace. It wasn't the end she knew, it was transformation. The love she had planted would continue to bloom through everyone it had touched. When night fell gently, Barbara passed as she had lived, surrounded by love, leaving behind a legacy of compassion that would echo for generations. At the center, activities continued. It was what she would have wanted. Every child cared for, every family welcomed, every inspired professional kept Barbara alive, not just in memory, but in transformative action. The Wingless Angels Foundation expanded nationwide. The Barbara Method, as it came to be known, revolutionized integrated care. Universities created courses based on her philosophy. Hospitals redesigned protocols to include the human component she had always championed. Connor, now the foundation's medical director, kept the essence of the work alive. With every decision, he asked himself, what would Barbara do? The answer always pointed to more love, more inclusion, more humanity. Little Emily Barbara, growing up surrounded by stories of her great-grandmother who had chosen to be her grandmother, naturally developed the gift of care. By age 10, she was already creating inclusion projects at school. The DNA of care had been passed on. On a special afternoon, a plaque was unveiled in the park where it all began. Barbara's Angels Plaza, where love overcomes barriers. Connor gave an emotional speech. This park witnessed the encounter that changed so many lives. A woman who had lost everything chose to give the little she had. A boy who couldn't walk learned to fly. May this space always remind us, no one is disposable. Every encounter can be transformative. The crowd gathered was living proof, hundreds of people whose lives had been touched by the love that started there. Children in wheelchairs played where Barbara had once slept outdoors. A full circle of redemption. Years later, when people asked Connor about Barbara, he always answered, "She taught me that disability doesn't define limitation. That love doesn't choose social status, that a person can lose everything and still have everything to give. Barbara wasn't just my savior, she was a teacher of humanity to everyone who knew her." And the work continued. Every day, somewhere, someone inspired by Barbara chose to care instead of judge, to include instead of segregate, to love instead of fear difference. On quiet nights, Connor sometimes felt her presence, in the smile of a child they had helped, in the relief of a welcomed mother, in the sparkle in the eyes of a professional who finally understood that care was more than technique. Barbara would live forever, not in monuments or plaques, but in every genuine act of care multiplied across the world. She had proven beyond doubt, love is the most transformative force in the universe. And when we choose to love despite everything, miracles happen. The story of the homeless woman who fed the paralyzed boy had become an urban legend of hope. But for those who lived it, it was simply confirmation of an ancient truth. Love always finds a way. Even in the most unlikely situations, when all seems lost, love opens doors, builds bridges, and creates families. Barbara had slept on the streets and awakened a matriarch. She lost a career and gained a purpose. She was wrongly accused and became a symbol of justice. Every apparent tragedy had been a stepping stone to something greater. Her legacy wasn't just the center, the foundation, or the awards. It was the certainty planted in thousands of hearts. It's always worth choosing love. It's always worth caring. It's always worth believing in second chances. And so in that plaza in Chicago, where an unlikely encounter had changed destinies, children still played. Some in wheelchairs, others running, all equally precious, equally loved, as Barbara had always known it should be. The end of the story. Now tell me, dear listener, what did you think of this touching story? Leave a comment if you too believe in the transformative power of love. Do you think Barbara made the right choice years ago when she protected her colleague? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe.